Hello, everybody. I am George Williams. I am the Next Search Catalog Coordinator for Northeast Kansas Library System. And this is video number one in a series of videos that koha-US is going to try to start doing. We're going to try to shoot for every other Thursday, and we're going to try and do deeper dives than other training videos do and get into some how-to stuff with jQuery and SQL and things that you can do to modify your koha system to make it do things that you didn't think it could do. And with me is Christopher Brannon. So
I'm George's sidekick this week, Christopher Brannon from the Coeur d'Alene Public Library.
So we talked about doing this for a while, and so we're just going to try every other Thursday to do a training video to go more in depth into something that you can do in your own library. And the first episode here, you know, one of the things that we turned on at Next Search Catalog as we came out of the coronavirus shutdown is the cart shelving location. So this is the feature in Koha that changes an item's shelving location to cart when you check an item in. And it has a cron job that runs with it called cart-to-shelf.pl that takes that cart shelving location and changes it back to the item's normal shelving location X number of hours after the item's been checked in. So here
Using that feature?
Have we started using that feature? Yes.
You just started it?
We started in May when we came back from the shutdown. And we we described the cart feature as recently returned. That's the way it appears in the catalog because it's an authorized value. So the code, the shelving location code is cart, but you can make the description anything you want it to be.
I think we use recently returned too. Yeah, it's a little bit more user friendly.
Yeah, it's, you know, we didn't want to say quarantine. Because that's kind of what we're using it for, you know, with the data from the IMLS and Patel Labs and the study they're doing says that items should be, the virus should have, you know, so far, you know, they're at the second phase of this Patel test, and they say that items after 96 hours, if they're stacked together, the virus should be gone. So we've got it actually set for 120 hours. So an item gets checked in, and the shelving location changes to recently returned, and then 5 days later, it goes back to whatever it is. And that gives library staff 4 days to have it in their quarantine area, and then another day to get it back on the shelf. So what it does really is it helps the library staff when somebody goes, hey, where's this book? They can look in the catalog and it says recently returned. That means it could be in this quarantine pile, or it could be, you know, on its way back to the shelf, depending on how long ago it was checked in. So it's just a way of helping staff find things for patrons. And we have it set to display in the OPAC too, so that patrons can see recently returned as a location. Now, I'm not going to show you how to set this up because Bywater has already done a free tutorial on their website called Using Cart to Shelf. Andrew set that up, and the website for that is right up there on the screen at bywatersolutions.com/education using cart to shelf. So I'm not going to explain how to set it up, but what I'm going to talk about is how we modified some code in Koha to make it easier for staff to see when something has that status. So
Awesome.
Right now, yeah.
So do you have, can you show us what that looks like before the code is applied?
Yes, I've actually got that right here. This is an item. I'm using the koha-US demo site for Koha. And so I've got 3 items on this bibliographic record. This one has a home library and a shelving location of adult. This one has no shelving location. And this one has the recently returned shelving location. And I can also, yeah?
I said cool beans.
Then I've also got the same thing in the OPAC. And the OPAC has some twists and turns to it, but I've got the same thing here. I've got the same item, adult, no shelving location, and one that says recently returned. So what I want to do with that is I want to make some changes that, well, first off, I'm going to go over to the staff client, and I need a document ready function, don't I? This is part we should edit because I forgot to put that in there in my notes.
One part of jQuery that has always perplexed me. Why, it would be nice if this part was just built in so we didn't have to add this part.
Yes, and I've discovered accidentally that there are some places in Koha where you don't need this. There are some pages where if you put the jQuery in here, it doesn't need the document ready function. And there's some places it does. And so I just put it in there all the time. So particularly in the OPAC user JS, I don't think you need it at all. But in the intranet user JS, there's some places you don't need it where the jQuery will work. And I don't know if that's because of a bug or because it's planned or whatever.
Interesting.
Interesting and annoying, yeah. Okay, so let me get back on track. So for everybody, I'm going to show you, this is the full code that we're going to add. And let me save it. And I'm going to show you what this looks like now in the staff client. So that's the difference that we're shooting for, is to have, this code actually does two things. I don't like the way that the shelving location appears right after the home library. So I have added some code that makes it say shelving location, it puts the shelving location on a separate line. But then and if it doesn't have a shelving location at all, there's nothing appears there. But if it has recently returned, I change the whole cell to a different color, and I put a little exclamation point icon in there. And so the recently returned items look different in the OPAC. Or excuse me, we're in the staff client right now.
Yes.
So now that I've showed you what the actual code is, I'm going to walk through how this actually works and what it actually does. So the first part of this, let me reload this page. So what I'm going to show you first is how I figure out, I didn't save that, did I? So how do we figure out what we want to modify here with jQuery? So I'm going to go back to this page and I'm going to type Shift-Control-I, and that opens the inspector. And I'm going to click on this little arrow.
What browser are you using?
I'm using Firefox, but the function is the same. Control-Shift-I is the same in Firefox and Chrome.
I believe F12 does that.
Does it? Okay.
Or you can right click on it and select inspect.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go up here, and what I do is I click on this little arrow here, and then I go up here and click on recently returned, and I can see that this that the shelving location is in a span, and the span has a class called Shelving LOC. And so that's what I want to grab out of here. And so I'm going to write a piece of jQuery. It starts with a $, ends with a semicolon. The selector goes in parentheses, and then I put in single quotes. And I know that the class I'm looking for, whoops, is Shelving LOC. Now, I don't know if there are any other pages in Koha that have that same class on it. And so in order to make this specific to the details page, if you look at the details page, the body of the page has this ID called catalog detail.
Always a good thing to put that in there if you're not dealing with multiple pages, because otherwise you might get some nasty side effects.
Yeah. So if I put that ID in there, catalog detail as an ID, then it's only going to select this span that says recently returned, or this particular span, it's only going to affect it if we're on the page that's a details page.
Nice.
And so this is the first thing I'm doing here is I'm adding the code that's going to say, that's going to add the line break and put the shelving location colon into that cell. Now for me, this is useful because every item in our system at all 51 of our libraries has a shelving location. I don't have any items anywhere that don't have a shelving location. But in the OPAC or in the staff client, that shelving location isn't in a separate column. It's just kind of stuck there behind the items home library. So what I want to do is I want to prepend some HTML to this span. And so I'm going to prepend a couple of line breaks. And then I'm going to prepend the phrase and I'm going to try and spell it right. And so once I add this, what it's doing is it's saying every place that we see the shelving and anything with the shelving location class on the catalog detail page, it's going to add this HTML before it. And that's 2 line breaks and a little label that says shelving location. So if I add that and save it, and then go back here and refresh this, it adds this shelving location to each of these cells.
Cool.
But wait, there's a problem. I don't have this problem, but some libraries are going to have this problem. I've got an item here that doesn't have a shelving location, and now it's got a label there that says shelving location. So what I want to do is I've got some code that will take that away. If it's empty, it's going to remove that class. And so this is the code, and I'll just plug it in here, and I'm going to walk everybody through what it does. So it's saying whenever we see that class of shelving location on the catalog detail page, each time we see that, if the text is empty, we're just going to remove it. So if I add that and then reload,
nice.
Then we don't get that label there when there's no shelving location at all.
Very cool.
So like I said, for my system, I don't need that because I don't have any items that don't have a shelving location. But on your system, if you've got some items that have shelving locations and some items don't, you're probably going to want this. And all that it does is it says, whenever we see that shelving location span and it's empty, let's just take it off the page.
And I just want to insert here, not to trip you up or anything. You know, the way that you go about doing this, there is no exact way to do this. You could take this and you could make it your own. You know, for me, you know, I might take the if statement and make it an if else statement. If it's empty, you know, remove it, else put in that HTML. So,
yeah.
So
yeah, you could do it either way.
Different ways to approach this. As long as it works and does what you want, that's all that matters. You know,
yeah.
As long as it's not dragging your system. You know, there's efficient code and there's inefficient code, but you know, as long as it's not dragging your system, making it work harder to do what it's supposed to do, you know, if it's doing what you want, that's all that's important.
Right. The reason I don't have this as an if else statement is I know that I don't even need this.
Mm-hmm.
Because somebody in our system can't create an item without creating a shelving location for it. So that gets us.
Somebody finds a way to do it.
Yeah, somebody will find a way to do it. Yeah, that's good point. So let's see. So the other aspect of this is now I've got a couple of things going on in that final code. And so the next thing I'm going to add in here is this is the code that adds that little icon, that little exclamation mark. So what it's doing, so now that we've got the shelving location label added there, we're looking for the same thing. But this time we're looking for anything where the shelving location contains recently returned. Now this is where if you change the description of the cart location to quarantine, you would want to change this text here to quarantine. And case matters. I can't put a small r in recently, because if I do and the location has a capital R there, they're not going to match. jQuery is case sensitive. So that's going to be important that I get this spelled correctly. I have the right number of spaces, and all the things that are uppercase are uppercase, and all the things that are lowercase are lowercase. But that's what we're doing here. Whenever we see this shelving location contains recently returned, we're going to prepend, we're going to add this icon. Now this is one of the Font Awesome icons that's built into Koha. So I can just pull this out of Koha. I don't have to create an icon and store it somewhere. It's just something that's available in Koha for anybody to use.
Just a quick question. If you wanted to use a different symbol, how easy is it to plug something else in there, find something and put it in there?
It's pretty easy. You know, that's something I hadn't thought of showing, but if you go to Font Awesome.
I love Font Awesome.
And we can look and see what the, I guess this is going to try and get me to here we go. If we go to the icons page on fontawesome.com, this will show you the icons that are part of Font Awesome. And I'm pretty sure that we have access to all the ones that are free.
And those are searchable, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
They're searchable, and you can filter down to just show the free ones. So any of the icons you see here, you should be able to add to Koha without any problems. And the way you do that, you know, like if we wanted to add an accessible icon, we just need to know the name. The code is right here that's exactly what the code is here. Class FA exclamation circle, and then I changed the color so that it's the color that I want. That's another great thing about these is we can set the color to be anything we want. We use some Font Awesome icons and some other pieces of code to highlight statuses, and we're going to talk about that in our next training session. But I chose this color because this is a color we weren't already using for something else. But let me show you, I saved that, so let me go over here and reload this. And so that basically the code there, what it's doing is it's sticking this little icon there. And that's the color I want. I want it to be red. So that gets us most of the way there. The way that we get to the end of this for the staff client is I'm going to go in here now. Now that I've added the icon, I'm also going to take that same recently returned shelving location. And this code here that says .parent, that's going to say, now that we've added the icon, we're going to look at the parent of this selector, and we're going to change the CSS so that the background is this color. And if we save that, then this should add the color to that cell.
Cool.
So it's pretty simple. It's not hard. I also, you know, we talked about how to add the fonts. If you look up HTML color, you can find some good resources for how to pick a color and how to set a color. And I'm sure when I was doing this, I just scrolled along here until I found a color that looked good. And then I get the code here. And that's the, you know, that's the code that you put in the background to change the color. So if we wanted this to be, like if we wanted this to be blue instead of that red that I picked, we would just have to change this and then reload. And then it's going to be blue instead of red. So
fun.
So that's how to do it in the staff client.
So is this code pretty much the same if you wanted to do this in the catalog, the OPAC?
It's very similar, but there are a couple of things that you have to take into consideration in the OPAC. So in the OPAC here, this is again is the koha-US demo site. We have the current location displayed, and the shelving location appears after the current location in the catalog. Mm-hmm. There's a system preference, and let me find that system preference. It's called OPAC location on detail. Just let me pull open a window here and show you that system preference. This gives you options on where the shelving location appears in the OPAC. So it can appear below the home and the holding libraries if you're showing the home and the holding libraries, or it can appear in a separate column. So if we save it as separate column and reload this, then shelving location appears as a completely separate column. Mm. And if we do below the holding library, below the home library, I wonder what happens if we just say below the home library and we're not displaying the home library. Then we get nothing. Oh. Which seems, you know, if you set below home library and you're not displaying the home library, that would be a problem. And if you're not displaying the holding library, and you have it set to show below the holding library, then it's not going to show up at all in your, I'm getting a whole bunch of tickets here. Turn that off. So the way that this functions is going to vary that setting this up in the OPAC is going to be different depending on how you have the recently returned shelving location set to display.
So the wording of that was a little confusing too. It said below, but it doesn't look like it's really below anything. It's next to it.
I think it's below if you have the screen scrunched up small enough. Yeah, it does seem a little awkward, but you know, that's another area where, you know, like I said, I have it set, I have our catalog is set to show as a separate column because like I said, everything in our system has a shelving location. So this is the way I have it set in ours, but it would not be difficult to add a label to put that shelving location, you know, under the current location of the home library with a label on it. I didn't think of adding that because I don't need it. It looks like I did think of adding that. It looks like I did write the code to add that because I was clever in thinking of people that have different systems than I do. How smart of me.
Yeah. Thinking of other people.
So let me go back here to the OPAC user.js and I'll just plug in the full code right here of what I did. So again, it's kind of the same thing. I've got something that removes the shelving location if there isn't one, and it adds those. It adds that label if you don't have it. So that's what the full code looks like.
So one of the key things that sticks out to me in this one from the other one is that the page ID is different. It's OPAC-detail.
Yes, that is the big difference. The other code, let me flip back over here to the internet user.js. The page that appears on is catalog detail, and that's the ID and the body of that.
And that's an underscore, so.
And here it's OPAC-detail. Yes, so that's a difference. But the code works kind of the same way. If the shelving location isn't, if the item doesn't have a shelving location, this will remove that. If it does, this will prepend the shelving location label that I created in the first one. And then the third one does the same thing. It grabs the icon and sticks it in there, and then it changes the background color of the entire cell. So,
and this is if the shelving locations are the same column?
it'll work either way.
Okay.
Because the ID, the selector that jQuery is looking for is that span.
Okay.
And so whenever it sees that span, and Koha puts that span in there, whether it's in a separate column or whether it's in its own cell. So if you have it in its own cell, in its own column in the table, you really don't need any of that. You can get rid of everything that adds that, and it's going to show shelving location. And this is the way I have it in our system. But if you have it set to show below the holding library, below the home library, if you don't include that first bit of code, then it's really kind of, I think it looks awkward.
It works.
It works, yeah, but it just doesn't look as nice as what I wrote. So if you're showing the location in the same cell as the current location of the home library, or both, this will add the shelving location label, and it will highlight the cell if it's got a recently returned shelving location. And again, you know, if you're using some wording other than recently returned, all you have to do is change that text from recently returned to quarantine or whatever you're calling recently returned items.
And this is great. It looks like you formatted it slightly different because you chose not to do the red color on this one, which works. I mean, it may depend on the theme that you've got going on with your OPAC too. So yeah, it doesn't have to be exactly the same as what you see in the staff side.
Right. You can make the colors whatever you want. If you don't set a color for the font awesome icons, they'll just be black. And in the OPAC, there was no need to have a different color there because it's the only thing I have going on in the OPAC that has a color that the cell color changes based on a status or a shelving location.
So you have this this jQuery code in the Koha jQuery library?
Yes, I do.
Awesome.
Anybody can download it from there.
Sounds great.
It will also be available on the koha-US page, education page that goes with this video.
Great. Well, George, thank you for sharing that. That's an awesome little tweak that we can all make to our systems to help make things stand out, to make that recently returned stand out so that people are more aware that it may not be where it says it is. So thank you very much for sharing that.
You're welcome, and I look forward to the next time we do one of these. I think next up we're going to do a similar enhancement for item statuses.
Yes.
So that'll be a couple of weeks from now.
And it'll be my turn to share code. Yay. So
all right. All right, we'll see you later.
All right.